Warning. Topics discussed on today's program may be disturbing to some viewers. The views expressed in this program are not predictions of what will happen, but what could happen. The panelists have been asked to think the unthinkable. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight, we have a very special edition of the Glenn Beck program. I want you to join me in the war room, which is actually our regular set. We just lit it differently. But we're going to play out some of the worst-case scenarios with some of the greatest minds around, asking ourselves one simple question. What if? Everybody always says, gee, you know, we got to bail out these banks because it'll be really bad if we don't. Well, what does it mean, really bad? And tonight we're going to think it out with the help of former CIA agents. That's some of the best money people around, military analysts, survival experts. We're going to try to show you how to prepare for the worst while everybody else is sitting back and hoping for the best. And I want you to know, everybody involved in this show is also hoping for the best. We're not doing this show to scare you tonight. Quite honestly, I'll explain at the end of the show exactly why. But I'm doing it, in a nutshell, to get you to start thinking outside of the box. It's the financial meltdown. The year is 2014. All the U.S. banks have been nationalized. Unemployment is about between 12 and 20%. Dow is trading at 2,800. The real estate market has collapsed. Government and unions control most of the business, and America's credit rating has been downgraded. That's the first scenario. Joining me now is we have Stephen Moore. He is a senior economic writer for the Wall Street Journal, and Gerald Celente. He is the founder of Trends Research Institute. Gerald, you're one of the spookiest dudes I know, because for you, this is like not a war game. You think a lot of this stuff is really coming.
We're writing the history of the future.
Okay. What is life like, under that scenario, what is life like in 2014 for America?
New York City looks like Mexico City. If you have money, or they think you're going to have money, you're going to be a target for a kidnapping. We're going to see major cities look like Calcutta. There's going to be the homeless, panhandlers, hookers.
Hold on just a Prozac?
Prozac, yeah. I'll take a couple.
Prozac, America, you can have some. Okay.
It's going to be serious. We're going to see petty thieves, and we're going to see pickpockets.
Okay. But what does, for instance, and Stephen, tell me about first before we go back. Give me the economic. What does the economic picture look like? What has happened to us?
Well, we allowed government to run away with itself. We became consumed by debt, runaway government spending, a credit rating that's just been crushed by the overwhelming amount of debt and taxation. And, you know, when you ask me about this doomsday scenario, you don't have to, you think about these wild thoughts. We've seen this happen to other countries. We've seen it happen to Mexico, Bolivia, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Russia, all consumed by government. All do-goodism that led to the decline of their civilizations.
People say to me all the time, Glenn, we're the United States of America. I read an editorial in the New York Times that said, we don't know how these things will play out, printing all of this money.
It is uncharted territory, but here's the point.
For the United States, it's not for other countries. It has been, and it always ends the same way.
That's right. And just look at what has happened in just the last 6 months. I mean, we have printed more money and increased the debt of the country more than at any time in the first 200 years. If you stay on that path, that story does not have a happy ending.
I'm right on the same page with what Stephen is saying. I mean, this isn't... We're creating a scenario for the future that's happening in the present. And that's what tracking trends is, a way of understanding where we are, seeing how we got here, and then looking where we're going. This is unprecedented. And we have people telling us, oh, don't worry, it's going to be all right. I mean, there's nothing that they could say that they've done right. And they're going to pull this one off?
How do you get people to to live under this without clamping down on the people? Civil rights, freedom of speech, what does that look like in 2014? Onkar Ghate, he is a senior fellow at the Ayn Rand Institute. Onkar, tell me a little bit about what you see happening with freedom of speech in a scenario like this. How does the government need to keep people muted in a situation where things have really fallen apart?
Yeah, I think so. In this kind of nightmare scenario that you're envisioning, what would happen is that the government wouldn't tolerate any kind of objections and dissent, and what would happen is that there would be a clampdown on free speech, particularly, I think, political speech. And we've seen precursors of that with, say, McCain-Feingold Act, which is an assault on the First Amendment rights, which tells people you can't spend your money to advocate for views you want. It tells you when you can do it. It puts periods when no one's allowed to speak or some groups aren't allowed to speak. And we would see a real extension of that so that the people in political power can hold on to their power.
Guess you can get the situation anywhere. This is the war that possibly is coming to our shores. The War Room. We are wargaming different scenarios. We are not predicting that these things will happen. We're asking, could they happen? What do we do if they happen? Here's our second scenario. Global civil unrest. Now the United States is no longer the world's policeman. Mexico has been taken over by narco gangs. Oil and gas pipelines have been targeted and destroyed. Tourism non-existent due to safety concerns. Ukraine is the first European country to fail, Eastern European. Ireland is the first Western country to fail. 50 million people worldwide are unemployed. There are riots in the streets. Joining me now from Berkeley, California, is former CIA operative Bob Baer, one of the scariest dudes I know. And in Chicago is Department of Homeland Security's Red Cell Unit, Brad Thor, also author of many bestsellers. Brad, let me start with you because we're going to start with Mexico. There's breaking news that just came over the wire just the last couple of minutes. I believe you have that update?
I do. Out of Juarez, that their chief law enforcement officer there has now resigned after one of his officers and a prison guard were killed over the last couple of days with notes threatening his family and everything. Glenn, this is what we talked about last time I was on with you, is that Mexico is this close to being a failed state, and it's going to be a narco state, and this is going to pose serious, as we discussed before, serious security concerns for the United States.
Right, and it will lead to, I believe, it will play into at least the disenfranchisement and a possible uprising here in the United States with, God forbid, please everybody, have a seat and relax just a little bit. Everybody on this set is praying that these things won't happen, but it's interesting. We were talking in the middle of the break that most of the people on the set and that are joining us via satellite really think these are light scenarios. These are the bedtime stories, as Bob Baer said just a minute ago. We're just asking, what would we do if they did happen? Our third scenario, anger and discontent at home. The year is 2014. Many Americans are feeling disenfranchised. People are isolated from their political leaders. They've been betrayed over and over and over again. Internet connects like-minded people, and the Bubba effect, a rise in individual militias. With me now is Michael Scheuer. He is the former head of the CIA Bin Laden unit. And back again is Tim Strong, a retired command sergeant major in the U.S. Army. Quickly, let me just, before we go, let me go to Michael and Gerald here on, or Stephen. Stephen, give me the, I'm sorry, I know. Thank God. Stephen, give me the, real quick, how much are taxes in our scenario of 2014 to pay for all the stuff that we're doing? How much are taxes?
If we tried to pay for all of the spending we've done, and just the last 18 months with higher tax rates, the Heritage Foundation and other groups have estimated the tax rates at the top would have to go to 80, 90, perhaps even 95%, which means that 95% of everything you make would have to go to the government just to pay for what we've already spent money on.
Gerald, what happens to the people when you start taxing? Like
tax revolts.
Yeah, tax revolts.
We all heard it on CNBC yesterday.
But you're not talking about a tea party.
Oh, no, this is going to be violent. People can't afford it anymore.